A shift in the snow. The Boston winter that year was colder than usual. Snow piled high outside the windows of my tiny office in a rundown part of the city. Inside, the air smelled like old coffee and soldering tools. I was going through my business's quarterly reports, modest numbers from my humble little electronics repair shop, when my phone buzzed with a message from my younger sister. Amanda. Emergency family meeting at Mom and Dad's tonight. Dad says it's mandatory. Something about your business. I sighed and leaned back in my chair, already knowing what this was. For the past 3 years, I, Sarah Mitchell, had been running my own repair shop. Meanwhile, the rest of my wealthy family ran Mitchell Electronics, a large and respected electronics retail chain. They never liked that I chose to start something of my own. My dad, James Mitchell, often reminded me of it. A Mitchell doesn't fix broken phones in a dusty shop. A Mitchell leads a company, he would say. But what my family didn't know was that my little shop was only the surface of something much bigger. 3 years ago, I quietly used the inheritance my grandmother left me to buy Apex Components, a large electronics supplier. Apex sold parts and components to dozens of tech companies, including, ironically, Mitchell Electronics. I had kept my ownership a secret, using a holding company and a few trusted people to manage everything in my name. They thought I was just a girl with a toolkit and a dream. But for 3 years, my father's company had been unknowingly buying millions of dollars worth of parts from me. That evening, I drove through icy streets to my parents' grand house in the suburbs. As I pulled into the driveway, snowflakes were still falling gently. I couldn't help but smile at the irony. They thought they were calling an intervention. They had no idea who they were about to sit across from. Inside, everyone was already gathered. Dad sat in his favorite leather armchair, trying to look powerful. Mom sat beside him, wringing her hands nervously. Amanda and her husband, Tyler, lounged on the couch. They all looked at me like I was a child walking into a principal's office. Sarah, sit down, Dad said, pointing to a chair directly across from him. I sat, calm and quiet. We're concerned about your little business, he began. It's time to stop playing around and join the family company properly. Amanda leaned in, pretending to be sweet. We've heard things aren't going so great. We can help, maybe take over your shop and give you a job in one of our stores. She smiled as if doing me a favor. Then Dad pulled out a folder. Here's a proposal, sign this, and we'll absorb your business. You'll get a management title. It's better than watching you fail. I glanced at the papers, then slowly reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I scrolled to a number labeled Apex HQ and put it on speaker. Apex Components. How may I direct your call? A voice answered. Hi, this is Sarah Mitchell, the owner. Can I speak to Marcus about our supply deal with Mitchell Electronics? The room froze. Dad's face went pale. Amanda's mouth dropped open. Mom clutched Dad's arm. One moment, Ms. Mitchell, the receptionist replied. Dad stood, face red. What kind of joke is this? I smiled for the first time all evening. Not a joke. I've owned Apex Components for 3 years. Your stores, your inventory, all of it comes from me. Then Marcus's voice came through. Ms. Mitchell, how can I help? Just checking, has Mitchell Electronics paid their latest invoice? Yes, ma'am. The spring order came in yesterday. Everything's current. Shall we process it? I locked eyes with Dad. Hold that order, Marcus. I'll call you tomorrow. Understood. I ended the call and gently tore their contract in half. Now, let's have a real conversation about business. They stared at me like they didn't even recognize me. Dad finally found his voice. That's impossible. Apex is owned by Sterling Industries. I pulled out my tablet and turned it toward them. Sterling Industries is mine, a shell company. Want to see the proof? Mom was the first to speak. But, how? The cost, it must have been $37 million, I replied. Grandma left it to me. I used it wisely. While you were laughing at my little repair shop, I was learning every piece of the industry. And now, you've been buying from me for years without even knowing it. Amanda's voice was sharp. You lied to us. All those times you acted broke. Like when you bankrupted Davis Electronics. I interrupted. You and Tyler crushed them to buy their stores cheap. That's just business, right? Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Dad stood again, clearly shaken but trying to sound strong. All right, what do you want? I leaned back, finally in control. Simple. New contracts, market rate pricing, no discounts, 5 years, locked in, and you stay out of my business permanently. Or what? Amanda snapped. Or I offer Riverside Electronics a 20% discount. Imagine what that'll do to your sales. That got their attention. Riverside was their biggest rival. A discount like that would be a death blow. Tyler spoke for the first time. That could collapse our margins. People would lose jobs. That's your responsibility, I replied. I'm offering you a fair deal, the same fairness you showed me when you tried to shut down my shop tonight. Dad looked like he aged 10 years in a moment. Amanda was crying quietly. Mom tried one more time. Sarah, please, what about Sunday dinners? We're still family. I turned to the door. Then maybe it's time we all think about what family actually means. Outside, the snow had stopped falling. Everything was quiet, calm. As I drove back into the city, I glanced in the mirror, my parents still standing on the porch, stunned. But I wasn't sad, I was focused. Tomorrow, they'd get the contracts. They had until 9 a.m. to sign, or face the consequences. But first, I had one more stop to make. My small workshop, the one they all looked down on, still had its lights on. My team was inside, working late like always. They were the real reason behind all of this, the reason I built something that mattered. They deserved to know the truth now too. Because the real storm wasn't tonight. It was just beginning. A new morning. By the time the clock read 8:45 a.m., the city outside was already buzzing. Inside my sleek office at Apex Components, things were calm, but tense. I sat behind my desk, gathering my thoughts for what I knew would be a very important meeting. Just then, the door opened and Marcus, my VP of Operations, stepped in holding 2 coffees. They're here, he said, placing 1 coffee in front of me. The legal team from Mitchell Electronics, all 6 of them, and your dad's with them. I nodded, not surprised. Anyone else? Marcus raised his eyebrows. Amanda and Tyler are downstairs in the lobby. They're asking to be part of the meeting. I gave a dry smile. Let them come up. The more people who hear this, the better. At exactly 9 a.m., the conference room doors opened. My father walked in first, looking like a general marching into battle. He was followed by his team of attorneys, Amanda in her designer coat, and Tyler with a folder under his arm. They looked shocked to see me already at the head of the table. No dusty repair shop here, just the glass-walled heart of the company they had unknowingly depended on for years. Before anyone could sit, Dad spoke. We're here today because we reject your so-called ownership claim over Apex Components. I didn't flinch. You're welcome to challenge it, I said calmly, gesturing to the team of lawyers seated beside me. But the paperwork has been airtight for 3 years, and while you waste time fighting a losing battle in court, I'll be talking with your biggest competitor, Riverside Electronics. I watched one of Dad's lawyers lean in and whisper something to him. He stiffened. He understood now. This wasn't just a bluff. I slid folders across the table. Here are the new contracts. 5-year term, market rate pricing, no early exits without penalties. Tyler opened his and frowned as he skimmed the pages. These terms are brutal, he said. Our margins will shrink by nearly half. I leaned back. That's called the real world. 4 years, you've been getting special discounts. That ends today. Amanda snapped. This is outrageous. There must be other suppliers. Tyler answered before I could. Not at our scale. Apex controls more than half the market in the Northeast. Anyone else would take months to ramp up. Overseas shipping delays would wreck our timelines. The lawyers huddled together. I could see panic starting to settle in. Then the door burst open again, and in came Mom, tears in her eyes. Sarah, honey, she said, voice trembling, please, this has gone far enough. We can work something out. We're still family. I stood slowly, looking directly at her. Family, I repeated. Let me remind you what family has done. When I opened my shop, you told your friends I was just rebelling. When I asked Dad for help, he tried to block my business loan. And when I won that award last year, Amanda told everyone it was because people felt sorry for me. I pulled out a thick folder and dropped it on the table. This is every email, every text message, and every little scheme you all tried to pull behind my back. Would you like me to read them out loud? The room went silent. Even Dad looked away. But none of you ever asked why I started that shop. I continued. It wasn't to compete with you. It was to help people, families who couldn't afford to replace their devices every year. While Mitchell Electronics was pushing sales, I was fixing what people already had. Dad scoffed, but I caught Tyler's expression, something between realization and regret. An Apex? I said, turning toward him. I bought it because I saw how you treated smaller stores, charging them high prices, cutting off support. That stops today. I slid another document forward. This is my final offer, market pricing for everyone, and you'll start building authorized repair centers for your products. Repair centers? Tyler asked, leaning in. Yes, like my shop, but on a bigger scale. It's time Mitchell Electronics supported repairs instead of blocking them. You've fought against the right to repair movement for years. I'm telling you, it's not just ethical, it's profitable. Tyler nodded slowly. This could actually work. We'd build customer trust, offer long-term service. Amanda stared at him like he'd lost his mind. You're agreeing with her? Tyler ignored her and kept reading the contract. We're not doing this, Dad shouted. We are not turning into a chain of fix-it shops. No, I said firmly, you're adapting. Sign the deal, and I'll help you roll out the repair centers. Refuse, and I start offering your competitors better rates within the hour. Dad turned to his lawyers. They looked grim. Everyone in that room knew the truth. He had no choice. I'll need to present this to the board, he muttered. You have until noon, I replied. One more thing. I handed over one last paper. My repair shop. It's now an Apex Components training center. We'll be certifying technicians for the repair centers you'll be opening. You'll need trained staff. Mom started crying again, but this time, it was different. I saw something soft behind her tears, maybe even pride. When the meeting ended, Dad and the lawyers left in a hurry. Amanda stormed out without speaking, but Tyler stayed behind. You played this masterfully, he said, almost smiling. Want to grab coffee? I'd like to hear more about your training center idea. I studied him. This isn't another setup, is it? He shook his head. No, if anything, I think you might have just saved us. Before I could respond, Marcus returned with a fresh stack of messages. Riverside's been calling all morning, he said. They've heard whispers about changes at Apex. I smiled. Tell them I'm busy, let them wait. As I looked around the room, the conference table scattered with contracts, empty coffee cups, and stunned expressions, I realized something important. For the first time in years, I wasn't just the odd one out in the Mitchell family, I was the one holding the cards, and finally, everyone in that room knew it.